All right, continuing with topic 3, but just moving on to part 2, and we're going to just extend our knowledge of the x factor a little bit more. So I'm giving you a new problem. It says consider 3x squared plus 8x plus 4 try factoring. Well, just like before, I want to first start with GCF. Every single time that is still going to be my first step. Okay, do I have a greatest common factor? And the answer is no, right? 3, 8, and 4 have nothing in common. 2 would be grouping. Can I group it the way it is right now? Well, no, because there's only 3 terms. The third step is to try the x factor. Well, we have a slight problem here. If I do the x factor, top is c, so it's 4, bottom is 8, okay? Well, looking at this, it looks like there's nothing. 4 is the result of 1 times 4 or 2 times 2. Neither one of those is going to get 8. So it seems like it's going to be prime, but it's not. And the reason it's not is because I kind of left out one thing in the last video. Now, I did that on purpose, so I wasn't being forgetful. But I didn't give you any problems where a was anything other than 1. Okay, and I didn't tell you that on purpose just because I felt like I wanted you to get used to using the x factor in general. So what I'm going to introduce now is what you do if a is not 1. In this case, a is 3, right? B is 8 and c is 4. It's really not that different. The only difference is at the top, you actually want to do a times c. So instead of us just putting c, in this case of 4, we want to put c times a. So in this case, 3 times 4, which is 12. Okay? The bottom is still going to be b. That hasn't changed. Just a big old 8. And the rest of it from here on out isn't going to change. So I look at my two sides and I think, okay, what times what gives me 12 and adds to 8? Factors of 12, 1 times 12, nope, 2 times 6, there we go, 2 and 6, okay? Now, again, kind of similar to the original type of x factor, those two numbers are what we're going to use to break apart our middle term. So 3x squared is no longer going to be plus 8x. We're going to go ahead and use 2x and 6x to break it apart, okay? Now, before, we had a little shortcut, and I'm going to work this out, but I'm going to end up erasing it, so if you don't want to write this down, that's okay. We would talk about how you could just use 2 and 6 as your two pieces, right? Well, x plus 6 times x plus 2, that's going to give me x squared plus 8x plus 12. That is not going to give me this problem right here, right? So I can't do that shortcut anymore. That shortcut is long gone. Well, I shouldn't say that. It's not long gone. It just only works if a is 1, okay? So now I have to go back to this grouping idea. I took 8x and split it apart into 2x plus 6x because that's what I found in my x factor, okay? Now I just group like I always have. So these two and these two. So I'm going to take out an x, and I get 3x plus 2. And I'm going to take out a 2 here, and I get 3x plus 2. So my final answer ends up being 3x plus 2 times x plus 2, okay? So very, very similar to part 1. You just can't do the shortcut anymore. You can't just skip and use these two numbers as your factors. You can't do that anymore. Ooh, school's out. So let's keep practicing. I'm going to come back to number 1 with the rectangle thing here in a second. So look at number 2. Is there a greatest common factor? No. Can I group it how it is right now? No. So let's do the x factor. On top, I want to do a times c. So 4 times 5 is 20. On the bottom, I put my b, which in this case is 9. So now I think of my factors of 20. 1 and 20, 2 and 10, 4 and 5. 4 and 5 are the winners, okay? Now I'm using 4 and 5 to break apart my middle term. So I've got 4m squared, and I've got 5, but no longer do I have 9m. Instead of 9m, I'm going to use 4m and 5m, okay? So now I can actually group and work the rest of this out. And take out a 4m here, got m plus 1. Take out a 5 here, m plus 1. So my final answer ends up being m plus 1 times 4m plus 5. That is my final answer, okay? Let's try another one here on 3. So again, I'm still going to check all the things before. Is there a GCF? You're still going to check that every time, and there is not. 2, can I group it as it is? And I cannot. 3 is the x factor, which is what we're going to use now. So at the top, I do a times c. So 3 times 14 is 42. Negative 42, excuse me, because I've got a negative there. B is just a 1. Okay, so now I have to sit there and think about my factors of 42, right? 1 and 42, 221, 314, 4, 5, 6, and 7. There we go, 6 and 7. Because it has to be a negative, one of these has to be negative, and I want it to be the 6 so that my 1 down at the bottom stays positive. Okay, now again, I'm no longer going to just use those for my answer. They are now going to become the pieces I use to break apart this middle term and turn this into a 4-piece problem so that I can, so that I can group. So I've got 3z squared minus 6z plus 7z minus 14. Okay, now I can group these two together. I can take out a 3z. These two together, I can take out a 7. Let's see. I've got z minus 2. So now my final answer, I've got z minus 2 times 3z plus 7. Here's my answer. Okay. Now I do want to talk about this algebra tiles thing because algebra tiles really are our friend when we're doing problems like this. Whenever they give you the polynomial, they have given you the inside. Okay. If they're asking you for the factors, they're wanting you to figure out what is the length and the width that gets you that. So 2x squared. That means that I have to draw 2 big boxes, right? Which we know is the result of 2 bars and 1 bar. But now the rest of this gets a little hard, okay? So 7x, I'm supposed to have 7 bars. Well, I know that I have to have at least 1 here and 1 here and 1 here. For me to produce any sort of single box, I have to have 1 in each of those locations. So I've got 3 accounted for already, but now I need to have 4 more, okay? I could add all 4 over here, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. But then that would produce 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 boxes, which I don't want. So I don't know that I want to add all of those over there. So let's just take off 1. However, I've got a problem. I can't just add 1 over here. I have to add 2, right? So let me take off another. So now I've got 3 and 4. Okay, that's better. So now I look, but that would create 6 of these. That's not what I want. So I have to take off not just 1 more, but I have to take off 2 more because I've got 2 rows over here, or 2 columns, I guess I should say. Now I for sure have 6 bars down here and 1 up here. That makes 7. And I have the 3 boxes I need there to match this 3. So now I can fill in the rest of this, and I know that my factors along the top here would be 2x plus 1, and along the side here, x plus 3. Those would be my 2 factors, okay? Now, again, we teach you the x factor because you do not want to have to draw 24,000 boxes for the rest of your life, okay? But it's the same idea. We're still trying to figure out how do I break apart the 7x. I broke apart the 7x in this problem into 1x, found right here, and then the 6 found here, okay? So the rest of this, oh, did I skip some? Nope. The rest of this is just practice, okay? I'm going to do a couple, then I'll pause and tell you the answers, and vice versa, just like I've been doing before. So on number 4, still going to check for greatest common factor. I don't see one. Can't group it. So I'm going to draw my x. The top is a times c, which is 6 in this case. It's a negative 2 times a negative 3. The bottom is negative 5. So I know negative 2 times negative 3 gives me that 6 and adds a negative 5. So I'm going to use that to break apart my middle term. Okay. Now I am all set to start grouping. So I'm going to group these two. I'm going to take out a negative 2. Oops. Take out a negative 2y. Negative 2y. And then I can take out a 3. If I take out a positive 3, though, look what happens. Oops. That's what I meant to do. No, negative. What am I doing? If I take out a positive 3, I'm left with negative y minus 1. Something wrong here? What do I do wrong? I have to pause, figure this out. This is the bad thing about not having a class out here to teach me and tell me what I'm doing wrong. Figured it out. It's supposed to be positive 1. So when I took out a negative 2 from a negative 2, I got a positive 1. So, like I was saying, if I take out a positive 3, that makes both of these things negative, which is not going to match this side, right? So I need to not take out a positive 3. I need to take out a negative 3 so that these things come back to positive. Take out a negative 3, so I've got positive y plus 1. Now they match, and I've got y plus 1 negative 2y minus 3. Okay? I'm going to do 5 with you, and then I will pause. So 5, we've done a problem like this before. Even though it only has 2 pieces, this is actually okay, because I can rewrite this as 4x squared plus 0x minus 9. So down here, I'm going to have a 0 for my b term, and that's all right. On the top, I need to do a times c. So 4 times negative 9 is negative 36. So then I know that 6 and negative 6 will be the things that add to negative 36. So now, I'm going to use that to split apart my middle term. My middle term here is 0x, which, when I write it this way, you can tell these two things would cancel out and give me 0, right? So now we group. I'm going to group these first two together and the last two together. So I can take out 2x, and I can take out negative 3. So I'm left with 2x plus 3 and 2x minus 3. Okay? All right, I'm going to pause it now and work out the last two, so y'all do the same thing. All right, those are my two answers in red, x plus 2 and 3x plus 2. The number 7 was a little bit tricky. It was h plus 7 and 2h minus 1. Okay? So, continuing right along, here is more practice. And because I've already done quite a few with you, I'm just going to pause and write the answers. So y'all feel free to work these out really fast. All right, here's some more answers. You will notice on number 8 that there actually was a greatest common factor that you had to factor out first before you even got going. You probably forgot that step. I'm just going to guess. So make sure that you're still including the greatest common factor is the first thing that you do on every problem. You always want to check that first. Do make sure that you bring down that greatest common factor. It was a 3, right? So I made sure that I brought it down and stuck it on the front of my factored form. Okay? So yeah, check your answers. Number 9 was actually a perfect square trinomial, 3x plus 1 times 3x plus 1. And 11 was actually oh no, I did 11 wrong. 11 can't be factored. Oh man, wish I'd noticed that right before I pressed record. So what I did on here, which I didn't pay attention to, is when I took out this negative 7, this should have been a negative 7 as well, meaning these aren't the same. So big ol' cross through here, bleh, this one is prime. You'll learn in topic 4 how I knew that, because this is not a difference of squares, it's a sum of squares, which I can't do. Man, if only I had waited just a second, I wouldn't have messed up in front of y'all. Okay, 2 more problems, I think. Yeah, 2 more problems, and these are just word problems that, again, are still factoring, so you don't want to read it and stress out. Just know that we're still factoring, so you could even do the whole thing without reading it, and then go back and see if you did the correct thing. So a square parking lot has an area of 4x squared plus 20x plus 25. What is the perimeter? So they have given us the area, and they're wanting the perimeter. Well, how do you get perimeter? You add the sides. Well, the only way I know the sides is if I calculate them, right? So think of it this way. If the area of a square is 49, and they want the perimeter, you have to know the sides first, which is 7 and 7. Oh, no. Whoa. Sorry about that. 7 and 7. So my perimeter, 7 plus 7 plus 7 plus 7, would be 28, right? We're doing the same thing, just the polynomial. So let me factor this to figure out what the side lengths are, because we're trying to figure out what times what gave me that area. So I first look for greatest common factor, and there's not one. So I'm going to draw my x factor. A times c goes on the top, so that's 100. B goes on the bottom. So what times what gives me 100, but adds to 20. 1 times 100, 2 times 50, 4 times 25, 5 times 20. That would be it. 5 and 20. No, because those are both positive. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Woohoo! So 10 and 10. Okay, so I'm going to split my middle term. And now I'm going to group first 2 and last 2. So I've got 2x I can take out of this. Whoa, guys. Whoa. I don't even know what is going on there. Whoa. Okay, I'm going to take a 5 out of this one. So I've got 2x plus 5 and 2x plus 5, which you remember, this shape is supposed to be a square, so that makes sense. That means that my side lengths over here are 2x plus 5 and 2x plus 5. But if they're asking me for the perimeter, I need to add all those together, right? And I should go ahead and maybe label these as 2x plus 5 as well. So if I add those, 2, 4, 6, 8 x's plus 5, 10, 15, 20 constants, so 8x plus 20. My final answer. Okay, so factoring helped us to get the side lengths because it helped us to figure out what times what gave me that number. All right, so 13, very similar. A rectangular painting has an area of 2x squared plus 8x plus 6. Its length is this. Find the width. It says, hint, try using algebra tiles. So again, if we have an area, right, that means we have this inside portion and we're wanting to know the length and the width. Well, they just told me one of them, right? So, let me erase what I just drew. They told me that the length is 2x plus 2. So I'm going to go ahead and draw that. Here's 2x plus 2. Okay. Well, I know that my little alleyways are going to go down this way, and I don't know what's going across this page. Like, I don't know what my alleyways are going horizontally, but they've told me the area. So I know it's 2x squared, so I can go ahead and fill in my big 2x's here. Okay, plus 8x. Well, I know I have to have at least a vertical one here and a vertical one here. That means if I'm supposed to have 8, I need 6 more. Well, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Just so happens I have 6 spaces left over for the 6 there. So let's go back to the problem. They're wanting to know find the width. Well, this is my length up here. This is my width on this side, and this is the area, right? Which I've already done. So I just need to figure out what was on the side. Well, this is where those alleyways come into play. So I had a bar here, a little one, a little one, and a little one. So clearly it was just x plus 3. Now you could have done that whole thing using the x factor, and what you would get is when you do the x factor, you would have this at the end, and you would just recognize, okay, well, they already told me this one, so my answer is the other one that they didn't tell me. Okay? Alrighty. I feel like I went through that one kind of fast, but it was still 17 minutes long. So let me know if you have questions. Do the practice. You're doing great. Just know you're more than halfway through. The rest of the videos should be much shorter from here on out because you know all of the main skills now. The X factor is really the big, hurrah of factoring. So let me know if you have questions, and good luck.